What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome on to my channel. Week 8 preview predictions are continuing today. We're going to be talking about a potentially sneaky upset bid game happening in Auburn, Alabama. Out of the ranks of the SEC, we got the 13th ranked Ole Miss Rebels trying to avoid an upset as they try to continue their push to get into Atlanta in the SEC championship game. But they got to go on the road and face an Auburn Tiger team that has underperformed to many expectations so far this season, but they are looking for their first SEC win and a signature one at that. It should be a fun one from Auburn, and we're going to dive on into it in just a little bit, but you guys know I got to thank you for all the support the channel has seen as of late. You guys have no idea what it means to me. It means the world. If you guys want to continue to show your support, hey, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when videos get uploaded. But guys, there are more ways than that to help me support this channel. You guys are doing one of them right now simply just by watching this video, and you guys can do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else that you guys are willing and are able to do to help me support my channel does mean a lot to me. Again, as I said, this is an SEC matchup here, an SEC West matchup. The Ole Miss Rebels trying to stay on track to potentially get into Atlanta, while the Auburn Tigers still seeking their first SEC win and potentially could pull off the upset here against Lane Kiffin's Rebels. Let's dive on into the stats that both of these teams have put up so far this season. We will start with the road team. That's the 13th ranked Ole Miss Rebels. And of course, you got to start out with this offense. We usually start out with the offense here, but this football team starts with the offense of Ole Miss, the offense that is explosive, that can put up points in a hurry, and that has done a really good job so far this year at not only getting points, but being disciplined and holding on to the football. And it starts with their quarterback, Jackson Dart. 1,638 yards on 64% completion percentage, 12 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions for Jackson Dart this season. He's performed really, really well for them so far this year. And again, 2 interceptions, only 1 fumble for this Rebel offense. Of course, we know that Quinshon Judkins is in the backfield. Ulysses Bentley has been in and out as well. He's rushed really well, 7.4 yards per carry. And then Jackson Dart has flashed the ability with the legs as well. And we know the talent that is in this wide receiver room. Guys like Jordan Watkins, Dayton Wade, Trey Harris, Quinshon Judkins is a pretty good pass catcher out of the backfield as well. So this is just a absolutely phenomenal offense to watch here for the Ole Miss Rebels. One thing that you may would like to see the Rebels do a little bit better, and that is convert on third downs and protect the quarterback a little bit better. Jackson Dart has been the victim of 12 sacks this season, a net loss there of 66 yards. So the offensive line definitely could do a little bit better in pass protection here in this game against Auburn. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, and again, it's a defense that feels like year after year, it kind of substantially, or not substantially, but it kind of minimally improves, right? So it kind of improves week after week, year after year, but it's not a big jump by any means. Now, this is an Ole Miss defense that does have a couple really good areas, and that is they force turnovers and they generate a ton of pressure to opposing quarterbacks. This is an Ole Miss pass rush that makes up for a lack of some other things that this defense does not possess here, but the pass rush has 3.67 sacks per game. It is performing at a really, really high mark right now. The rest of this defense definitely still has some work to do. I mean, that rushing number there, hey, not a bad defensive rush number at all, but the secondary cannot fold, right? And I know they've played some really good pass offenses so far this season, especially in that of the LSU Tigers, but this is an Ole Miss secondary that has gotten gashed against pretty much every major opponent that they have played, and the third down defense is definitely something that can improve as well. However, good news if you are Rebels fans, this is an Auburn team that is really yet to find their stride offensively at all. And it starts out with the play of the quarterbacks. Well, actually, we're going to start on a positive note with this Auburn offense. We are going to go to the rush game. Now, their quarterback, Peyton Thorne, does lead that category. 225 yards, 2 touchdowns on 4.5 yards per carry for him. And you do have a couple nice running backs back there. Jarquez Hunter is pretty good. Brian Beatty is good. And then when Robbie Ashford has come in, he has 5 rushing touchdowns on the year. So they definitely could use him in some packages in this game here. But this is a rush offense that averages 191.5 yards per game. And really that is because that's really the only way Auburn's been able to effectively move the football this year. This is a pass offense that is probably one of the worst pass offenses in the SEC. In fact, I think it is the worst passing offense in the SEC and might be one of the worst passing offenses in the entire country, aside from the Armed Forces academies, of course, because of the systems that they run. But Peyton Thorne has only 745 yards, only 4 touchdowns, and has thrown 4 picks so far this season. The offensive line has not done a very good job in pass protection. They're not that great of a third down team, and they turn the football over. Something has got to give here for this Auburn Tiger team. If they want to pull off this upset against the Ole Miss Rebels, their offense has got to start to find a groove. It doesn't have to be a groove like what we've seen out of Ole Miss this year, but it has to get something going, and it has to have some sort of consistency if you want to pull off this upset. Now, let's talk about the Auburn defense, because statistically, these numbers are not great either. Yes, the turnover number is good. They have forced 11 turnovers so far this season, but I mean, fairly comparable to what Ole Miss's defense has done this year. Yes, they do allow fewer yards per game than what the Ole Miss Rebels allow, but 23 points per game, that's not necessarily the best number. 362 yards per game, okay, that's a pretty solid number. Definitely not necessarily the best number either. Third down defense is pretty solid for them, although, again, it could be better. And they generate a fair amount of pressure to opposing quarterbacks. They're 12 sacks so far on the year. It just feels like an Auburn defense that's, well, been very meh. However, if you do want a positive note about this defense, which there are a ton of, there are a lot of really, really good players on this defense, and this defense, especially in SEC play, has found ways to keep them in games that maybe otherwise they shouldn't necessarily be in. Now, that wasn't the case this past week against the LSU Tigers, but in some other matchups, their defense has done a nice job at keeping them in games, especially with forcing turnovers. They're going to have a tough time here to stop this Ole Miss offense, guys. It leads me on in to my keys for the game, what to watch for, whatever you want to call it. It's just some things I feel like you guys should keep an eye on while you are paying attention to this game. If you happen to flip to this channel, we'll talk about where to watch it in just a little bit. But this explosive offense, as we start with keys for the Ole Miss Rebels, is going to overpower the Tiger defense. Yes, the Tiger defense is going to have their moments. I believe they're going to end up coming up with a couple of stops here in this game. But this is just too explosive. It's too quick. It's too agile. It's too fast of an offense for Auburn to stop consistently. So if you are Ole Miss coming into this game, put your foot on the gas pedal and do not take it off. And like I talked about earlier now, as we take a look over at the defensive side, this defensive line makes up for a lot of the problems that Ole Miss sees defensively, especially with their secondary, right? Their secondary has been beat for over 250 yards, and I believe every major Power 5 opponent that they have played, it even got gashed against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. So this defensive line, for the amount of pressure they bring, it takes a world of hurt off of this Ole Miss defense. Now, the D-line's going to continue to do their thing in this game, but if I am a Rebel fan, I would look to see Lane Kiffin's defensive side make some improvements in this game, especially in the secondary. Again, this is a pretty good pass game to test it again, one that doesn't really move the ball that well in the Auburn Tigers. And Ole Miss, guys, simply put it down to its point. Ole Miss is too explosive for the Auburn Tigers on the surface. Now, when you move on into the keys for the Auburn Tigers, there are ways that this upset is going to be able to be pulled off, but it starts with their offense, right? They have to show up not only in pass protection. Again, you saw the numbers there, and this is an Ole Miss defensive front that provides a lot of pressure. It is by far the best aspect of this Rebel defense, but the offense has to show up in pass protection. The pass game has to show up. So if the offensive line shows up, if the offensive line is going to give Robbie Ashford, Peyton Thorne, whoever happens to be back there at quarterback, time to throw, then they need to make some throws here. And this needs to be an Auburn team that connects on maybe a couple, if not a handful, of downfield passes to a couple of these wide receivers here that are in this room. But run game wise, continue to do your thing, continue to pound the ball on the ground. That's what's been effective for Auburn so far this season, but you have to also be able to move the ball through the air. It's an Ole Miss secondary that gets beat through the air a lot. Auburn has got to make them pay. You have to expose the weaknesses of the Rebels defense. But moving down to that very last bullet point there, I know I kind of talked about the first two in conjunction there, but the D is going to need to step up and force some turnovers. They have done that so far in a couple of games this year, but if the defense does its job and the defense gets off the field, maybe forces a couple 3-and-outs, or even better, if it forces a short field and gets turnovers, this is an offense that has to do its job and it has to be able to capitalize. Guys, it leads me into my prediction for this game. Quite simply, I just don't trust Auburn's offense to do what I just said it needed to do, right? I just said it needed to force turnovers. Auburn's offense is going to need to live up to the explosiveness of this Ole Miss Rebel offense. Maybe not in its entirety, but if the defense forces a couple takeaways, which I have a feeling that Auburn's defense is going to force at least one takeaway in this game, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be enough, especially with what we've seen out of this Auburn offense here. Home field advantage is going to provide its, advantages here in this game, but the Rebel offense is too explosive. This Auburn offensive line has struggled too much, so the defense will get home, will create some sacks, and Auburn does not have the offense to convert those third down and longs. I think Ole Miss, that 6.5-point spread surprises me how slim that is. I think Ole Miss easily beats this spread. If Auburn's going to want to pull off the upset here, there's going to have to be something special that happens in Jordan-Hare Stadium. 7 o'clock on ESPN should be a fun one, regardless of my prediction. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And hey, as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See you guys in the next video. Goodbye.